magazine has created a pretty explosive cover about Bill Cosby and his accusers. Now, of course, this is a cover story, and the cover accompanies the story. And it's a very, very interesting way of visualizing the whole controversy involving Bill Cosby. Let's take a quick look at it. It features 35 women who have accused him of either sexual assault or rape. And also there's an empty chair, as you can see at the very bottom of the cover. Now, they're not very clear about what the empty chair necessarily symbolizes. However, people who have seen the cover are using the hashtag #TheEmptyChair to encourage any other victims who haven't come forward yet to come forward.
So that's 35 out of the 46 women who have come forward already on Bill Cosby. And as, of course, you know now, Bill Cosby admitted during court proceedings that he did use quaaludes to try to sleep with women. He seemed to think that it was perfectly normal. Like he said it like, oh, it's just part of how I seduce women, by making them completely, powerless to fight back when I get on top of them. I mean, it's unbelievable. But I think that everybody's got to live with themselves. So he probably did believe that in his own crazy head.
I think that he tried to rationalize it in order to feel better about himself.
Yep.
I think that he comes from a different time where I read the cover story, which was insanely long, but it was really interesting because it kind of talks about how much society has changed in the perception of rape, right? Before, rape was thought to be something that happens as you're walking down the street and a stranger comes out through the bushes and has a knife or a gun, threatens you, coerces you, and then has sex with you. But in reality, rape isn't usually like that, right? So in Bill Cosby's perception, and this is based on the deposition, he thought using quaaludes was no different from using alcohol in order to seduce someone into having sex with you, which is so crazy to me. Of course, he's wrong about that.
So, of course, enormous difference, because alcohol might get people in the mood and they might be more willing to consent.
Right.
Quaaludes, you don't get consent. They literally become immobilized and you can't move, right? And so, but Anna's right about the context. It's not to excuse Bill Cosby at all, okay? And he did this for decades upon decades. It's just to give you a sense of how far we've come. And in this sense, it's positive that we recognize the errors of our ways in the past, right? And have gotten to that point where we're in a much better situation where we say, hello, of course, having an acquaintance come up to your room, for example, doesn't mean you're allowed to rip their clothes off or, make them immobile and then force yourself upon them, right? But like if you go back as far as the Bible, in the Bible it says that if a woman isn't yelling loudly enough when she's having sex, when she's being raped, and it says rape, outside of town, then she's guilty. She's guilty, right? And so this, idea that a woman, if she's with a man alone, well, then she consented already, is insane, but they used to believe it.
I mean, Bill Cosby said the women coming to his home or coming to his hotel or wherever it was, in his perception, was consent. Right? It's incredible that he was able to say these things in the deposition and he faced absolutely no prosecution whatsoever. This was a deposition that was obtained through a civil lawsuit. So it's correct that he's never faced any type of prosecution. He's never been convicted of rape. But the fact that he admitted to obtaining these drugs with the intention of drugging young women and having sex with them proves that he's done something wrong.
Yeah. And I think the cover story is, and the cover itself is incredibly powerful. So first off, you look at all those women, and it tells the Whoopi Goldbergs of the world. Really? Yeah. You think they all, throughout those different decades and different women and all those different times, they all had an incredibly similar story, one that Cosby admits in a deposition is what he used to do in terms of the quaaludes and making sure they couldn't move and resist them, right? All those women on that cover are all making it up. Come on, right? And then the empty chair, it's kind of brilliant because some people took it as representing all the other women who might have come forward or could come forward later. I took it as could be the next person if you don't put a stop to it.
Yeah, it's really up for interpretation, which is why I think it's so clever and it's just a smart way to get a message across. I love what they did, and I think it's one thing to talk about the 46 women who have come forward. It's another thing to visualize some of them. Remember, this is only 35 of the 46 women who have come forward with their stories. Visualizing it hopefully changes some people's minds, because people feel this need to defend him because of the image that he had for such a long time. But honestly, for me, the second I read that he admitted to buying those drugs with the intention of drugging young women and having sex with them, that's it. He's guilty in my eyes.
Yeah. It's powerful. Any way you slice it. Powerful cover. Nice job.